Okay, the Let's Go Washington folk are gaining momentum, and they're cranking it up to 11. 11 initiatives, that is. And if you want to be a volunteer and help in this project and be more effective, stay tuned for some helpful hints so that you can crank it up to 11 as well. Thank you for watching. My name is Glenn Morgan, and this is We the Governed. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I am excited about this project, the Let's Go Washington project, and these 11 initiatives. There's never been a grassroots effort like this before, and so it's been really interesting to go out and see this. Like many other people out there, I have collected initiative signatures before, door to door. I've done them at events, and I've signed them myself. I've done them outside of stores. Many of you have probably done the same thing as volunteers, and you've seen this around the state, but you've never seen a project like this. Nobody has. And so it's kind of interesting. New territory is being paved as we kind of look at how to get something like this out there, as a lot of volunteers are comparing notes and just comparing the process around the state. So one of the things I'm going to point out is that there's a lot of these brochures that are starting to be distributed. I think these are helpful. They give all 11 of the initiatives here. You can check them off as you go along. And these packets are being widely distributed throughout the state. And I find that this is just a helpful way, especially for people who are signing it, to be able to say, yes, I signed all these, or take it away and explain to other people, hey, these are the 11 initiatives I signed. And that does seem to be a helpful process. The more of these that get out there, I think, the better. And so I hope that some of this is just going to serve as like a helpful hint on what we're seeing with some of these signature gathering events, so that if you're trying to do one of these events yourself, that this will help you be more effective. So there's 11 of these initiatives, and that's a very different process. If you look at one of these actual signature packets here, you have to go and sign each packet, and that's 11 of them, so it takes a little bit of time. So what we're finding is that it's most effective if people go and organize signature gathering events. So not so much, again, people will be gathering these at July 4th events or picnics or parades or fairs, and at regular events just like they normally do, sometimes outside of businesses and such. However, what we're finding most effective is these organizing specific signature gathering events. And this is the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of volunteers around the state. And you can kind of see right here, this is a picture from Cowlitz County. They have all of these signature boards. They actually stick them on clipboards so that it's easier for people to get there and sign those initiatives. It's not a bad way of doing it. And the one thing that has come out of organizing some of these events is just some basic suggestions on how to make it a little bit more efficient and effective for you. So if you have an event, you're going to organize it. There's one coming up. I know some activists in Clark County. We're going to organize 500 people to get together and sign these initiatives all at once. You got to think of how much time it takes to go and sign 11 initiatives. It takes about 10 minutes if you're pretty fast, 15 minutes if you're a little bit more methodical. I do encourage you to be methodical and make sure that penmanship counts. But if you run the math on what that takes, that means you really need to have probably one initiative packet for every 4 or 5 people who come. So I think that's a pretty good idea. General rule of thumb, if you're going to do this, is just try to have, we estimate how many people are going to be there, and just try to have those packets set up so that people can be simultaneously signing while they're going and not having to wait in line too long. It just makes the events go faster, a little bit more efficient, and people feel like they're getting something done when they show up. So that's just something that we're seeing in the field, and that makes a lot more sense when you're organizing one of these events, which means if you're ever standing there and signing something, most of the time, after about 5-10 minutes, you probably want to sit down. Most people are going to want to sit down to be able to flip through and sign each of these. So make sure you have tables and chairs so that it's just easier for more people to be signing at the same time. That just makes it easier. That's what we're finding in the field. And I don't think you're going to find too much trouble in getting a lot of people to come to these events. If people know about them, they seem to be coming. And whether they're at churches, whether they're organized at businesses or community centers, or even just in tented areas where they have all kinds of tables and chairs for people to set up to sign, this seems to be a very, very popular project, high level of interest, and a lot of momentum in going into these situations. This is a picture from Wenatchee here. I showed this in my last video. This is what it kind of looks like. You just set up a bunch of these tables and people are sitting down, and you can see them signing away. And then when they're done, they've completed all 11, or all 11 that they want to sign anyway. And then the next person can go ahead and use that same packet. But there's not a long line waiting. You just set up a bunch of packets so that they can all be signed simultaneously. So again, as I mentioned, this was in Cowlitz County where they had all these clipboards. Now, clipboards are nice if you happen to have them, makes it a little bit easier, but there's a much more economical approach too you can also use, and that is if you have a bunch of extra campaign signs that nobody wants to see and can't use ever again, those are not a bad thing. I mean, anybody's been in the political process, got a bunch of these sitting oftentimes in the back of the garage or at your local party headquarters, just stuff that nobody's going to use anymore. You can actually cut these in half and then take binder clips and attach them to the top of the packet, and that just makes it easier to have something quick, cheap, and easy that you can hand out, and then people can just flip each page as they go along and they sign it. So that's the suggestion that I would have for you. If you don't have a bunch of those already, just get some old used signs, and again, worthless signs like these are probably best, and just cut them in half and use them as a way to kind of, so it's easy for people to write on and they can hand it to somebody else when they're done. So very simple way of doing it. We are encouraging everybody, and most of the time this isn't too hard to sell, is when people come out and they want to sign, get them to sign all 11 if possible. It's very popular. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult for the most part, and as people get to know these initiatives better, there's a higher and higher level of interest in getting them all signed. But penmanship does matter. It's easy to get sloppy after you sign the first couple, so try to get them all filled out as fast as you can, and but as cleanly and clearly as you can, because imagine how the Secretary of State, they have to look at those signatures and make sure they know who you are. So penmanship does matter. I also want to point out on the Let's Go Washington website now, it looks like they're starting to update it with a lot of locations. The green locations that you see here are where there's packets and brochures and things available to pick up and where you can come in and sign pretty much all the time or some level of full time. Double check on each location to double check their hours and availability and the exact address. There's also temporary events that are being scheduled and organized there, and these events are going to be where people are going to be at say a fair for the weekend, or maybe at a church every Sunday, or whatever those temporary events are. Just make sure if you're going to go there, just check on it so you know the date and the time. And if you're trying to organize one of these yourselves, make sure that you report that information to the Let's Go Washington folk, and their website seems to be getting updated right now pretty regularly, and a lot of new locations are being added on an hourly and daily basis. So I think that's going to be a very helpful tool if you're interested in driving just a lot of people there to collect signatures. If you're going to organize your own event, get a lot of people there, make sure you let them know as well. And feel free to reach out to your local radio station or some of the local websites or bloggers in your area, just so you get a little bit more promotion. It just drives a lot more people there, and it's very easy to collect signatures that way. Another feature I did notice they added on the front of the website here was this idea of where you can add in other ideas. Everybody's got an idea for an initiative. We all do. And so if you don't think you're 11, these 11 are the end and all, and they aren't. There's other ideas that are out there too. Just feel free to add them to the list. Obviously, if this is successful this year, this is something that grassroots people like you and I could probably organize again next year, and we could get out there and do it again. So it's a lot of fun to come up with these ideas, and you never know what good ideas are out there that are maybe missed now, but it's something we can look at next year. So I think that's worthwhile and a nice thing to review and just think about if you have some of those ideas. Now, in the end, it's all about volunteers. This is not a paid signature drive process. You can see it on the PDC when you look at the website. No paid signature gathering teams are going to be organized for this. This is all about volunteers going out and doing this. So ultimately, it's up to you and I and just thousands of other people around Washington State that are going to get involved, that they want something like this to happen, and so they're going to go out and collect signatures or volunteer to work at one of these events or a couple of these events. And it just takes a lot of energy, a lot of time to get out and do that. So the volunteers are the key. Without the volunteers, nothing happens. Without the grassroots, nothing happens. So the other question that comes up, and this is one that I was hearing Brian Haywood, who's the sponsor of this initiative, mention this, and I really like it because I think the original idea had been, hey, let's have 10 initiatives, and then they went to 11. And so if you don't know the reference of Spinal Tap on Crank It Up to 11, I've linked down below. You can find out a little bit more information there, but it's kind of a funny reference, and it's just, hey, if we're going to go big, we might as well go all the way. So let's crank it up to 11. Let's get out there. Let's collect these initiatives. Let's just make it happen. Even though it's never been done before, you might as well have a first time. This is a good time to do it. High levels of motivation. I can see momentum everywhere. It's really an amazing project to observe, and it's fun to be engaged and involved in this right now as tens of thousands of these packets are being sent out, and we got all kinds of people driving all over the state. Even with this high price of gas, there's a lot of volunteers willing to drive it around, and it's going to be just an interesting project to happen. And being involved in it is always better than sitting back and observing it, because if you're involved and you're making it happen, you're being part of the solution and not just sitting back and complaining from the sidelines. The other part to remember is that these are initiatives of the legislature. We have until December to collect all these signatures, plenty of time to do it in, but the point is to get it so it can be delivered to the legislature and elect good people to get in there and actually sign them into law. If they don't sign them into law, it means next 2023 means that November ballot's going to be filled with a lot of good ideas that the people can vote on, but it's great and easier if the legislature just votes it into law. Inslee can't veto it. It's something good to fix what's broken in Washington State, so I love projects like this, and I like projects that get people involved and engaged, and this does more than anything else I've seen recently. So crank it up to 11, get involved, get engaged, do what you can, send any other comments you have down below. Let me know what you're experiencing in the field or any other suggestions you might have to make this process more efficient, not just for me, but for anybody else that's involved, and they can read your comments there as well. And just remember, like always, that the future belongs to those who show up, and showing up and get involved is the first step in cranking it up to 11.